Good evening, everyone. Welcome to, this edition of the North Shore School Board. I'd like to call this meeting officially to order. Please join us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everyone. Give me a moment. I've got multiple screens and lots of things there. So thanks again. On behalf of the board, I welcome all members of the audience to this evening's meeting. This meeting is a working session of the board to conduct the business of the district. The agenda for today's meeting has been published, and the agenda items to be discussed and or voted on have been studied by the board members. I would like to introduce the people participating in this meeting tonight. Recording Secretary Siobhan Frazier, Superintendent Dr. Michelle Reed, board members Jacqueline McGurty, Amy Cast, David Kogan, and Sandy Hayes. And I'm Bob Swain. I currently serve as board president. An agenda for this meeting is available online at boarddocs.com. So our first item of business here is approval of the agenda. Would the board like to make any changes to the agenda as it has been published?
No, President Swain, but I can't see the board docs on my Zoom. I don't know.
Oh, no, it has not been pulled up yet, I guess.
I just want to make sure I was logged in correctly. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. But I have no changes on the agenda. Thank you.
Anyone else? Nope. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's been approved and motion approved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Wait for it to kick in here. We need some theme music for these dead times.
I think it's been approved.
Is it? Did it pop? It didn't pop up on mine. Did you see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's not. I'm not seeing it for some reason. All right, the agenda has been approved for this evening. Thank you. Our next item is the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Reed.
Thank you, President Swain. Well, we continue to be very busy. I continue to meet with principals and regional assistant superintendents to review school action plans. I've continued to maintain our weekly parent focus group on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. Last week was our first student board meeting of the year, and we worked on our work plan for the year and heard how things are going from a student's perspective. This year, we have a number of students representing the different high schools and programs within high schools, and I look forward to scheduling our annual meeting with the student board and the elected board, and they're looking forward to it as well, to share some of the thoughts and ideas they have about school and how their experience is going and how we can improve our support of their experience. Also enjoyed the PTSA luncheon last week, where we had an opportunity to visit with our PTA leadership from our schools around the district, and are so grateful for the partnership of our PTSA. It's truly a powerful organization and a powerful force for good, no doubt. I'm meeting with Mutu Fabai this week to finalize our strategic plan refresh, so that I'll be able to share that with you in the coming weeks in our 2x2 meetings. I've asked Mike Bailey and Tracy Malloy to assist me in this work with Mutu, because one of the things we want to do in the refresh is really blend our GFOA, or needs-based budget allocation work, with the refresh direction of the strategic plan. And in having that conversation, we think it would be much more powerful to have that conversation as part of the refresh rather than layered in afterwards. So we're excited about that. Had an opportunity to visit with some of our senior parents and talk about ways that we might improve sort of our interactions with seniors and how we might think about acknowledging potentially their entry back a little earlier in the dial. So we are discussing that right now, and I should have information out about that in the coming week. I've attended health department briefings for both Snohomish County and King County, and currently our data is looking a bit troubling, but continuing to stay up to date with our community transmission rates, ICU rates, and health department recommendations. And then earlier today, had an opportunity to host a coffee with our parents of special education students or students requiring special needs support. Big thank you to Michelle Holowichuk from the PTSA Council. And at her suggestion, we had an opportunity to meet with close to 100 parents this afternoon and walk through some of the questions, concerns, and frustrations of our parents of students requiring special needs. So it's been a busy time and looking forward to more full days. Hard to believe it's the last week of October and that our next board meeting will be in November. I can't even believe we're already into November, but that's my report this evening, President Swain. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Reed? All right, thanks again. Now we'll move on to association and public comments. Before we go to public comments, Dr. Reed, do we have any association guests today? I forgot to ask you before the meeting.
Yeah, President Swain, not to my knowledge. I think we're good to go with public comment.
Okay, excellent. I will read our intro to public comment. The North Shore School District Board of Directors has set aside a period of up to 60 minutes to receive updates and comments from association leaders and citizens of our community. The board expects all parties addressing the board to present their comments in a way that is civil and respectful. Please speak directly to the board and address matters related to district operations, policies, procedures, and agenda items under consideration by the board. Comment should not make any reference to an employee or representative of the district by name or by identifiable reference. There is a complaint process available through the Office of the Superintendent if interested. Washington state law requires that only items on a previously published agenda be discussed at a board meeting. Any new topics brought up during public comment will either receive a later response from a district employee or board member or be discussed at a future board meeting. All right, so our first public comment, I'll open it up here. Is from Julie Barrett. Topic is IEP and SPED. Ms. Barrett says, I have 4 students in the district, 8th grade at CPMS, 9th grade and 10th grade at North Creek High School, and an 11th grader at SAS. 3 of my 4 students have IEPs and receive varying levels of support. One of these students receives a substantial amount of support services and is enrolled in the Aspire program at Canyon Park. North Shore has really stepped up their commitment to equity and equality and equity this school year, and yet the students with special needs and disabilities are struggling more now than at any other time. My students with IEPs are getting only a fraction of what they are legally entitled to receive through their IEP. The school district has made no attempt to provide the services that have been missing since March 5th, 2020. As a result, we have seen substantial regression with 2 of our students in particular, which is well documented with their private psychiatrists and psychologists. The failure of NSD to fulfill their contract to our students will have long-term ramifications. To date, we have received no update for special education services. We have received no plan for how the district is going to address this as the school year progresses. In the case of the Aspire students at CPMS, there is no reason these students cannot go back to class and follow CDC and OSPI guidelines for COVID-19. This is a class of 10 students or less. I would like to know how the district intends to fulfill their contracts with these special needs students going forward. What is the plan? Is there a committee? When will you be communicating to families? Patience. I'll beg your patience here a second. I accidentally closed my public comment screen here. Okay. If anybody else has it up, go ahead and jump in. Here we go. All right, public comment number 2 is from Kate Nichols. She starts by saying, the risk of reopening schools will never be zero, regardless of vaccines and metrics. The sad reality is that there are many more risks to students than just COVID-19. All risks and the corresponding benefits of reopening should be considered. From the World Health Organization, quote, school closures have clear negative impacts on child health, education and development, family income, and the overall economy. The decision to reopen schools should include consideration of the following benefits: allowing students to complete their studies and continue to the next level, essential services, including access to nutrition, child welfare, such as preventing violence against children, social and psychological well-being, access to reliable information on how to keep themselves and others safe, reducing the risk of non-return to school, benefit to society, such as allowing parents to work, close quote. In Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health's article, quote, the important and elusive science behind safely reopening school, it's the title. Author Brian Simpson relays Jennifer Nuzzo's, parentheses, an epidemiologist and senior scholar with Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, recommended to not forget the benefits of reopening schools. From the article, the obsession about risks for school children is understandable, of course. No one wants to endanger children's lives, but Americans have been maddeningly, that's a tough one, inconsistent in their approaches to risk. Nuzzo cites an example: closing schools but leaving open restaurants and bars, which are potentially riskier environments. She also notes that closed schools have led parents desperate to keep their jobs to take their children to all-day care or even improvised classes led by teachers from public schools. Quote, not every parent has those resources, and we are now setting up parallel education systems, Nuzzo says, in an effort to bring risks to zero. Are we, in effect, not actually reducing risks all that much? All right. Third is from Martin Bartholomew. And the topic is the right of students, teachers, and staff to choose for themselves in-person education. We have come a long way and learned much through these trying times. We have become better. I am asking now that you please consider allowing the students, parents, and teachers to choose if they want to return to in-class learning. I know what you're thinking, that it's reckless and dangerous, that it would lead to more infections and the spread of COVID-19. It might, or the benefits could outweigh the risks. But above all, I want the choice. Please ask and see who is ready to go back to work to in-person learning. Please ask how many teachers are ready to go back to in-person teaching. Ask administrators if they can help schools come back. I know that we have the capabilities. I'm not asking to get rid of online school. I know that not everyone is ready. Will you please give us the choice? Thank you. All right, that completes our public comment. Thank you everyone for sending your comments. Before I move on, just to, if people haven't read the website, just to make sure we get everyone's comments into the meeting that they intended them to be read at. We were unable to read 2 of those comments last board meeting because we had a deadline of an hour before the meeting, and while we're all trying to get Zoom working and make sure people are ready to go, we just weren't able to get to them, and we apologize for that. So we've moved it to 3 hours. Please submit your emails or 3 hours prior to the board meeting so that we have time to collect them and get them ready. All right. Okay, we've moved on. We are now going to the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I think just because there is some controversy, Dr. Reed, would you mind taking a second just to clarify that the supplemental health curriculum has to do with a 1988 law around AIDS prevention and is in no way related to perhaps a controversial referendum that is out right now?
Thank you, Director Hayes. In fact, I looked at it twice when I saw it just to confirm, but this is a response to an old mandate, as you mentioned, pre-2000, probably pre-1990, requirement for HIV/AIDS instruction. And it's a curriculum that we've used for actually quite a little while. It's not new, but it's going through a formal adoption process as a supplemental curriculum being brought to scale. So thank you for bringing that to attention. This does not connect to the current discussion around health education.
Great question, Director Hayes. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Reed. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, I will call for the vote. Here it is. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, we will now move on to action items. Our first action item is a request for approval of a district core curriculum for AVID elective classes, grades 9 through 12. Dr. Reed.
Thank you, President Swain. This is something that we we implemented at Inglemoor and North Creek. I think you heard from Assistant Superintendent Obadiah Dunham that both schools are using the AVID curriculum, and this is actually to approve the libraries of materials that the schools use. We believe it has a positive support function, particularly for first-generation students looking to go to post-secondary education, but really all students benefit from the study skills support that AVID provides. And now that we have a 7-period day, we feel like we're able to integrate this really well-researched, supportive curriculum into our high school courses as electives. They're not required, but it is curriculum to be provided during these elective courses. So I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Any questions?
Superintendent Reed, I was just wondering, are there any thoughts or requests for AVID to be brought to all our comprehensive high schools?
I know they're all looking at the program. Not all schools have had the same interest. However, I know it's a topic they're looking at, particularly in light of our Goal 5 work.
Great, thank you.
And if I could just ask, did I read somewhere that we also have AVID at one of our middle schools?
2 of our middle schools, I
Two of
believe, have started a study skills / AVID-like elective. I believe that's Kenmore and Canyon Park. I think it's one of those, it's more challenging at the middle school because we're still sitting in a 6-period day at the middle school. And if you add an elective, then that means you may have fewer students in a different elective because it's, a finite number of courses, staff, and students. So it is at 2 middle schools and 2 high schools. I think it'll be easier to bring to scale at high school. However, I think students would also benefit at the middle level from that. And if you recall, the recent Education Foundation luncheon, if not this past year, it must have been the year before, I think, when we were actually present together. We did hear a presentation and report on how that was going at Kenmore Middle School. So they seem very pleased with it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I apologize. My brain clearly got stuck with the word library. I know that's shocking, but can you explain what that means? Is this books that kids have access to, or is it the curriculum? What do they mean by libraries?
Well, it's the materials. They call it a district core curriculum for Avid Elective. Siobhan, if you could bring up the memo that goes with this item, please. So I believe it's online at this point, and the it's not a significant amount of money at only $4,500 per school, but it's my understanding is it's an online library of curriculum that supports the Avid courses. And is there a second page to this, Siobhan, that might give us a little more information? No. Okay. So I will get back to you on the details of what it actually looks like.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Anyone else? All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote.
My text a friend indicates that it is an online, which is what I indicated, but I think it would be helpful the purchase gives us a lifetime access to these materials. So it seems like a screaming deal, but I'll get a link and see if I'll share the link Friday so that you all have an opportunity to see what that includes.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Our second action item is the Interlocal Agreement for Educational Services with Seattle Public Schools. Dr. Reed.
Thank you, President Swain. And this is an interlocal agreement that we annually approve to support students who benefit from the programs that Seattle Public Schools, because of their size and capacity to provide, enable us and other districts to participate. And Siobhan, if you could bring the agreement up, please, or the summary statement of the agreement. So this is for students with special needs, and it's actually something called the Bridges program. And it's outlined, I think if we go up just a little bit again, thank you, Siobhan. It's a special program that provides students who qualify for special education services in the Bridges program. So it's something that we annually sign and support, and I would recommend that we approve the agreement.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote.
Yeah, I will note that the particular Bridges program still isn't in person because Seattle Public Schools has paused their move to in-person learning as well. But the agreement, it will be in place when they resume their move to in-person learning.
Thank you.
So it doesn't have an online component? I'm sorry, I just clued into that.
I'm unclear when I was looking at that. I think primarily the programs for in-person, and I'm not sure if we're providing the online support for students until that time or if Seattle is. But I will do a double check on that as well. Excuse me, it's a very small number of students.
Thank you. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Our third action item this evening is the 2020 through 2022 collective bargaining agreement between the North Shore School District and the North Shore Educational Office Professionals Association. Dr. Reed.
Thank you, President Swain. This is the collective bargaining agreement for our Education Office Professionals Association. And this was negotiated this past summer by John Young and Tracy Patterson and Dugan Harmon, and just a team from the district with the team from our NEOPA group, which is our office professional group. And this is their ratified contract, which I would recommend we approve.
Thank you. Questions?
No, the executive summary was very handy.
Yeah.
So appreciate that and appreciate everyone getting together to negotiate the agreement.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, lastly, for action items, Sunrise basketball donation from Bill and Melinda, from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Dr. Reed.
Thank you, President Swain. This is one of our parents at Sunrise Elementary School who happens to work for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and was able to secure a $10,000 commitment to support the implementation of outdoor basketball backboards that are adjustable for height. And these are basketball hoops that would be outdoors that theoretically we'll be able to use when we're through with the COVID-19 virus pandemic. But my understanding is if we don't approve this donation prior to November, that it is not a donation. So I know we've talked about this, and it is, as I mentioned, a parent who was able to secure this to better augment their outdoor basketball hoops.
Dr. Reed, any questions on this one? Okay, well, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion has been approved. Motion has been made and is seconded. Any further discussion? I don't think so. All right, I will call for the vote. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone. That's it for our action items this evening. We'll move on to performance reviews. Tonight we were talking about Goal 5. So this is the monitoring report for Goal 5, ready for lifelong success after graduation. We just spent an hour and a half or longer on this with our study session prior to our board meeting. So I will defer now to Dr. Reed.
Thank you, President Swain. I want to again thank the team that presented, Dr. Tracy Malloy and the 4 assistant superintendents and Dr. Bigelow. The 6 of them work regularly together to support the work that they shared with you this evening. In addition, our high school principals and teachers, support staff, counselors, and quite honestly, our system K-12 or PK through 12 are all responsible for the data, because the stronger the foundation in early childhood is, the more likely our students will persevere and be able to graduate successfully. So this is a team effort and a culminating data point, probably why it's goal 5. And just very proud of the work they've done. I also want to share that we've mentioned Stephen Gehring's work several times this evening, and Stephen was able to collaborate with us to draft a dual credit grant with OSPI to support that work moving forward, and we did receive that. So that'll be $75,000 that we're receiving to support that work, as well as other work around dual credit options. And we're hoping to maintain that for 3 years each year. So just excited that that work will continue, and it'll be funded by OSPI. So we're grateful for that. I think we've got some things to celebrate and some things to go back and check on and some things to continue to work on. But I believe overall that I'm in compliance with the stated objectives, and am certainly willing to answer any questions or hear any discussion on the topic this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. All right, the floor is open for questions, comments.
I'll just kick us off, and we did have more than 90 minutes, like 105 minutes of rich conversation around this in the study session right before this, which I'm very glad the team has been able to figure out how we can have these conversations virtually. So a bit of a process thank you, as well as a content thank you. So the information was very rewarding and engaging in terms of how much the needle continues. Like you said, it's, you never quite get there, but we are making such great progress, even with everything that the whole system had to deal with last spring. So thank you to everyone for all their great work and for the rich conversation.
Thank you, Director Cast. Anyone else?
Well, I'll agree with all of the above. Just thank you again, Dr. Reed, and your staff for the amazing work. I was just so very impressed with the amount of detail, and the detail with respect to how far they are all going to find every possible avenue for improving our graduation rates and all of the items listed in Goal 5. And it was a terrific discussion. I appreciated all of the numbers and the charts and the graph. It really spoke to me with that, and I thought it explained a great deal. So thank you.
Thanks.
And I'd like to add into, Dr. Reed, as you stated, this is really a celebration for everybody involved in the North Shore School District and the community. On-time graduation rate for the North Shore School District of around 95% is just really a testament to all the hard work that everybody's doing to make sure that each and every student has the best education and put them on the best path for success post-high school. So there are, some work to be done, and we'll continue to do it, I'm sure of that. But it's really something to celebrate. Thank you.
I'll pass that along.
Yeah, it was just lovely to see the graduation and thought to the work, right? That it's not, we don't consider our job done once they get the high school diploma, that we want to make sure that they're ready for the second half of the 21st century, right? So really delighted to see the huge improvement in some of our more concerning subgroups in terms of graduation rates, but also the number of students that are participating in some form of post-high school education and the prep work to have them ready for that.
Anyone else? All right, I would just like to say, again, thanks to Dr. Reed and your cabinet staff for putting together the data and explaining things to us. And I also would like to just thank our teachers and our counselors who do the groundwork. I've had some firsthand, experiences and just talk to people in the field about just how much teamwork goes on when even one kid in a school is having some struggles, and how it's a team approach to discussing how we can best help that child and that family move forward. It's very impressive, and people are really doing a lot of great work out there. So I just wanted to say thank you. Okay, if that is it, we now have an option to find Dr. Reed in compliance, making adequate progress towards compliance, or not in compliance. Is there a motion from the floor for one of the three?
President Swain, I'd like to move that Dr. Reed has reasonably interpreted Goal 5 and is making appropriate progress towards achieving the stated goals.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
I want to clarify that Siobhan's going to need to adjust the language in the, it's making progress. So Siobhan, if you can make that adjustment, please. Or it's making adequate progress, Director Kogan. I'm trying to clarify.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. I read it off of the form, so let me just check. It says, reasonably interpreted the provisions of the relevant goal policy, and the district is making reasonable progress. And then it continues towards achieving the desired results called for in the relevant policy. So something like that.
Perhaps Siobhan could just copy and paste from the policy governance review sheet that we all got.
Perfect. I think that's a great idea.
Can we move on then, or?
I think so. We'll just make sure we clarify the language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, before. Okay, excellent. All right. So we'll move on to policy reviews. Of course, now we have an opportunity to look at Goal 5 and to hear from the floor if there's any thoughts or wonderings or recommended changes, things to discuss.
Well, I don't absolutely want to change the goal. That was a community effort, but I have a wondering. I heard some concerns from the presenters around looking for measurables in Goal 5. Plus, when you overlay it with COVID-19, I'm wondering what we as a board will be looking for next year as measurables for demonstrating students are making progress in this goal.
Well, that's a very good point. I'm sorry, Superintendent Reed. I was just going to agree with Director Hayes. That's a really good thing to think about. As we prepare for the process, maybe this year is a good time to kind of make notes and keep them in mind as we start working with Mutsu again. But I agree. It's amazing how things have shifted in the last 9 months. And so I look forward to that conversation too.
Right. I was going to share, I think, as you did, Director Cass, that in our strategic plan refresh is a great opportunity to look at what measurements we're measuring and what data we're looking at, and maybe what measurements are we missing that might bring us closer to achieving our goal outcomes.
Anyone else? No, I think the goal stands well. It is very broad, as we know, but I think now that we've seen some additional data, further discussion about what data are we really trying to dial in on, especially that post graduation data. What do we really want to track, and how do we do it? We're going to definitely need some guidance on how that can occur. And so, yeah, good stuff. But I don't think we need to change anything at this point. Anyone else? Okay. If you have post-meeting thoughts, please send them on to Dr. Reed and myself. All right. And I'll move on to discussion item, North Shore Innovates and North Shore Learns. Dr. Reed.
Yeah, thank you, President Swain. As I indicated in my superintendent report, I have stayed in close contact with King County Health and Snohomish County Health, communication groups, and the data continues to not be running in our favor at this time. I think we've also read that several districts in our area have paused their planning for in-person instruction until after the winter break. I think we're going to take a measured approach and continue to watch the data and continue to utilize our staged approach to make our decisions. I think it's important to stay grounded in what we started and continue through this time. I understand this is a marathon, not a sprint. None of us thought we'd still be here months and months later. I want to assure the board and community that we continue to plan forward for each stage and what that'll take for each group of students and staff to safely return to campus. One of the parts of our calculus in that is to make sure we can sustain the return once we begin it, because the disruption of going and coming back and going and coming back is also detrimental for students and staff in terms of routine. So we continue to plan, continue to watch the data, and we realize also that we're ending first quarter. If that's possible, we're a fourth of the way through the year now. And we're working out some of the bugs still with Schoology, and it's how it syncs with parent view and student view. And just making sure we're able to provide the linkages within that system, but really proud of how hard all of the staff are working, how hard our students are working, and honestly, how hard our parents are working to support this. It's just been a really unbelievable change to everybody's routine, and the grace and patience and goodwill everyone's extending to one another is very much appreciated. I know there's an urgency to try to get us back into the classroom. I do also know that staff have worked very hard to have an increased structure and increased face time with students and increased schedule. And we really think that until we can safely return, that we're trying to do everything we can to meet student needs. So that would really be my update at this point. Be willing to answer any questions or take any direction that you all have contemplated on this topic.
Thank you, Dr. Reed.
Dr. Reed, I just have one thought. Since you mentioned it's true, this is the quarter mark. Perhaps, we've heard a lot of concerns, both in terms, like we've mentioned before, it's, perhaps not as much as some families had hoped. It was maybe too more content than some families had hoped. I was wondering if an appropriate temperature check, if this is easy to do. I certainly don't want to add a ton of work to people's plate, but at the quarter, you usually get that little midterm grade check-in, and it might be across our system, kind of a statistical check-in on how how students are doing. Just thinking about the grad rate data and the 9th graders on track to graduate data from last year, it was statistically really close to where we've been before. And so if it's not too hard to kind of take a peek at the midterm grades, and if they're statistically kind of where we've been, it might be an interesting data point.
I think we're anxiously awaiting that data. And certainly I'll share that with you when we receive it. So absolutely, it's one measure on our dashboard as we look at student achievement for sure.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Good. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Reed. We appreciate the updates. We'll move on now to board reports and communications. And this is the time where if members have new business, please let us know.
So I have one, and I'm actually going to volunteer my fellow board members for this. During the PTA Connections Luncheon on last Wednesday, it became clear that there was great appreciation for sharing of some of our legislative priorities. And so I was wondering if Director McGurty and Director Cass maybe want to do a presentation to our PTSA Council with our legislative priorities at an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, I was really delighted how interested everyone was in this work, since all of us have been spending a lot of time on it. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good idea. Anyone else?
I just had a quick thought, a kind of a question. I was wondering, since annual conference is virtual this year, you know, if we need to spend any time, and we can do this next meeting, maybe, like, do we need to schedule, like, we'll have to schedule Zoom calls to talk about breakout sessions, right? Like, usually we get to sit around dinner and lunch and chat about what we've seen. And I think we have to be more structured about that. So just wondering, maybe next meeting we take some time just to talk about, you know, kind of what people are thinking about doing, and if we want to think about chatting.
Okay, maybe use board reports or this section to chat about what we learned. Is that what you're thinking at the next board meeting?
Or if we want to schedule like 60 minutes on the day of the conference, like try to recreate that sensation of sitting around a meal and just chatting.
Okay.
It's sort of a virtual boards night out. I think this came up in the networking call or some of the notes afterwards about how we can approach. I don't, of course, remember what the suggestions were, but that was one thought that I had. We can't meet and go out to dinner together to discuss what we've been doing. Maybe we can do it virtually somehow.
Try to get some Maggiano's delivered to our house. A little
Yes,
DoorDash,
exactly.
right?
Nice big bottle of Chianti, sure.
Okay, well, I'll follow up with Dr. Reed on that and the rest of you, see what kind of ideas we can come up with. It's a great idea, though. It is. It's hard. It would be hard not having that, because we're all scatter and bring back everything that we hear and learn and inform ourselves. Okay, that's a good one. Anything else on new business? No? Okay. We will move on to board member reports. Director McGurty, you're first.
Let's be out there first. Okay. Well, let's see, a few things here. I have been continuing to call into the WASDA networking calls on Thursdays. See, on Tuesday, the 13th, I attended a WASDA training session for legislative representatives to try to get a better handle on how those things are done. On Wednesday, the 14th, President Swain and I met with Cascadia, and Dr. Reed met with Cascadia president and some members of their board of trustees, which was a great introduction to them and, well, each other, and how we can partner to try to help our students with respect to the community college environment. Thursday, the 15th, I also had a chance to meet with a few parents of seniors, which was really very interesting and just so great to get their input and ideas. Monday, the 19th, was conversations with the board for our Spanish-speaking families. And again, also so very helpful to hear their ideas and the questions and get some idea of what we might be doing wrong or right or new things that we could try. Let's see, October 21st, we had the PTSA roundtable, which is terrific to plug in with them. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Director Bagruti. Director Hayes.
Thank you, President Swain. So I've actually had a busy couple of weeks. It was almost normal busy. I attended a special ed in the law. It was a 2-day conference. Some really interesting takeaways from that. All virtual, of course, so a different way of attending a 2-day conference, but some good learnings. Also had the opportunity to meet with Representative Springer along with Director Cast. So continuing our work of advocating for some of our concerns. And speaking of advocating, I was on the Washington State PTSA had an advocacy panel where they had a couple school board members advise PTA members on how to advocate with your local school board. So that was an interesting moment, but got to do that and enjoyed that. And then lots of PTA events. So attended the PTA roundtable as well as the state PTA Legislative Assembly this weekend. Again, obviously all virtual. And then my highlight of the last 2 weeks is I got to ride with the library books on the school bus and see them delivered to our students. It was just a truly delightful way to spend a couple hours, see kids so excited to get their books and the joy of the librarians and handing them out and seeing the kids. It was great.
Great. Thanks, Director Cast. Director Kogan.
Thank you, President Swain. On Monday, the 19th, I had the pleasure of joining in the conversations with the board. I just want to thank our families for making time to join us in that evening for a rich discussion with great conversation. And then on Tuesday, the 20th, I had the pleasure of attending my first virtual school visit at West Hill Elementary. And I wanted to just thank Principal Whitehurst for giving me an experience of what it's like to be a student in a virtual classroom in North Shore. I hadn't seen that firsthand exposure before, and it was really a wonderful thing to see. Thank you.
You did. Thank you, Director Kogan. All right, that would leave Director Cast and myself.
Thanks, President Swain. Yeah, just a list of dittos, basically. So October 15th with Director Hayes and Superintendent Reed, we met with Representative Springer. October 19th, also enjoyed our first virtual conversation with the board and with everything on everyone's plates. Really appreciated the staff support and translation support and our Spanish-speaking parents who came to share such a great evening with us. I also too was delighted by my first virtual school visit on October 20th at West Hill Elementary. So inspired to, like Director Kogan said, take a glimpse inside a virtual classroom, but also see the perpetuation just of the work. You know, everyone is working so hard and quickly retooling everything. And it was a wonderful, very rich discussion. October 20th, also met with Senator Frocht, with President Swain and Superintendent Reed. There's 2 more legislative visits left. And just a heads up to the board, our wonderful advocating board, we are hearing some pushback on our request to hold harmless our transportation funding. Just to let you know, Superintendent Reed's was at that call too, and he requested some data in terms of how we're spending our transportation dollars. And of course, we're going to be pulling together some reports on that. But I mean, I I always appreciate honesty from our legislators, but I think we have some work to do, especially with our peers across the state in terms of trying to get that funding level kept the same. On October 21st, I also greatly appreciated the PTSA luncheon. Missed the salads, but it was so great to see everyone's faces and to continue that work with our great partners. And then also, I'm continuing to participate on the Thursday WASDA networking calls and with President Swain on Friday mornings, our East King County School Board calls. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Cast. Similarly, as busy as the rest of you, similar events. Yes, met with Dr. Eric Murray, President of Cascadia, with Jacqueline and Dr. Reed and their couple over their trustees. It was great discussion, just talking about how we can partner together and improve education all around. Then also met with Senator Frocht and Representative Paulette from the 46th District. And conversations with the board was excellent. It went well for our first online conversations. It was really well done. And similarly, the WASDA calls on Thursdays, Friday meetings with the East Side group with Director Cast and Dr. Reed at times. And then PTSA luncheon was excellent. It was good to see everyone. And I'm glad we've got this Zoom thing kind of figured out. It seems to run pretty smoothly. So that is all I have. And that brings our meeting to adjourn. So thank you very much, everyone.